Hello there and welcome to this Astranti management case study highlights reel. In this video we'll be going through highlights of our different pre-scene videos in our pre-scene pack, and hopefully by the end you'll be one step closer to passing your MCS exam. So in this video we've got clips of 5 of our pre-scene products to help prepare you for the case study exam. The overall goal of all 5 of these videos is to help both further your knowledge and save you time. CIMA students every year say that one of the biggest challenges of the MCS exam is balancing the demands of work, home life, and studying for the MCS exam, and therefore our goal is to save you time by doing the analysis for you. So let's start with the pre-scene analysis. The goal of this is to save you the trouble of sifting through the pre-scene yourself all at once and trying to get as much analysis out of it as you can, and providing our own analysis, which will help save you time. This will be delivered by myself, the MCS tutor Kenny, and let's get on with it. We can now take a look at this introduction section here, and these 3 paragraphs, because they are short and just seem to be a bit of a preamble, would be quite easy to skip over for some students as well, but there's a lot of useful information here that will help inform your answers in the exam. So firstly, we see that Cuppcar is a quoted company. This means that at some point it was a private company, but has been publicly listed. It doesn't say right here why it went public, but we can infer that, for example, it was able, through an initial public offering, to open more dealerships, as it now has 214. Due to the fact that it's a publicly listed company, it also has different regulatory requirements. Government regulatory bodies will put more public scrutiny on a publicly listed company than a private company, and will also have to obey different parts of corporate governance. For example, it will have to publicly state its financials, and there might be requirements related to things like internal control and insider trading laws that might now apply to it. As mentioned, it operates 214 car dealerships. This is a fact you'll want to get correct in your exam, that are spread across its home country of Welland. Each dealership sells new and used cars as well as related products and services. So as we can see here, it sells new and used cars, making it a car dealership company. This means that it buys in new cars from manufacturers and allows customers to trade in old cars, used cars, in exchange for buying a new car. You'll have likely seen many car dealerships in your probably just in the last week driving to work, and you'll probably have been to one and haggled with a car salesman, so you'll know all about how they try and maximize their revenue from each customer. From the fact that they also sell related products and services, these will likely be things like car insurance, and if a customer wanted to take out a car loan, they could provide financing. This provides an opportunity for vertical integration for Cuppcar. If these related products and services are sold through a third party, it would allow Cuppcar the opportunity to buy one of these companies so that it can provide them for itself. And if it already provides them for itself, then this vertical integration is a great way to increase control and revenue. We also see that Welland's currency is the W dollar. While it is a technical point, and in the exam, if you wrote T dollar or simply the US dollar sign, you probably wouldn't lose marks, but it would indicate to the examiner that your technical accuracy is not quite there and it just looks a bit bad in the exam. So make sure you remember to write W dollar if you're talking about any specific numbers. We also see that Cuppcar has to prepare its financial statements in accordance with the IFRS. So what does this mean? You'll probably be thinking that there's so many standards that refer to it, but a couple that spring to mind would be IFRS 10, which would refer to group accounts. So as Cuppcar operates 214 car dealerships, these likely operate as independent subsidiaries, and so Cuppcar would have to make a consolidated income statement taking into account every single dealership it owns. So there's also IFRS 15, which refers to revenue, and as Cuppcar sells cars to consumers and likely sells some of these on credit, it will need to think about IFRS 15's requirements on how Cuppcar accounts for its revenue. So just from these two little paragraphs here, we can see many different things about Cuppcar, including the fact that it is a profit center, and this will be hugely important to how you analyze Cuppcar in your exam. It's very different than if Cuppcar was a cost center, in which case you'd be judging it by completely different metrics, but because it's a profit center, generating revenue will be hugely important while keeping costs to a minimum. Therefore, you could even already start thinking about KPIs related to customer satisfaction as well as sales revenue. And we now come to our third paragraph, which talks about your role within Cuppcar. So you are a financial manager at Cuppcar's head office. So what this means is you're not working at one of the individual dealerships, you're working in head office, and therefore you'll be working within a hierarchy which goes from CEO to the finance director, the CFO, to the senior finance manager, your boss, and finally the finance manager, which is you. Now, you might be wondering what the finance manager does, as this likely isn't your current job at your company, and CIMA have very helpfully given us 5 key activities, which are each worth 15 to 25% in the exam, which this fictional finance manager is expected to perform. Now, some of these can be a bit vague, but they are useful ways to help structure your revision, and you would want to make sure that you are confident of being able to do each of these in your exam. Ultimately, though, I would say that the main thing a finance manager is expected to do in the CIMA MCS exam is advise, advise, advise. In real life, you'd probably be quite responsible for managing a team and implementing strategy, but in this exam, you are expected to advise the senior financial manager on Cuppcar's actions. This is a step up from the OCS exam, where you'd be expected to just explain things, but you're not quite at the level of thinking strategically. This means that you will have to advise your senior finance manager on how Cuppcar is doing. This means you won't be coming up with things like it won't be your decision whether Cuppcar starts selling electric cars, for example, but you will be expected to provide the senior finance manager with useful information and ideas that they can bring into their own meetings with the corporate hierarchy. So we'll now move on to the strategic analysis. In this video, we use a combination of different models from F2, P2, and E2 to help break down the strategic position of Cuppcar and see where it is at the moment and where it wants to be in the future and how it can get there by using the rational planning model. In this video, I'll take you through a SWOT analysis of Cuppcar. Finally, let's do a SWOT analysis when analysing where the company is now. This is probably the most effective and simplest tool to use, and you may need to remember this in the exam. So, in terms of strengths, Cuppcar does have a strong focus on staff training and recruitment. It focuses on heavily training its staff to be able to provide information, as well as expecting them to be experts on their cars. It also has a diverse range of cars. We see that it has cars from every major manufacturer in Welland, and it's also one of the largest car dealerships, which gives it advantages in terms of its long-standing relationships, and it has a lot of property as well, which a smaller provider getting into the industry would be envious of. It also has a strong focus on providing quality experiences, which also is a strength, as it also has practical ways of doing this, for example, by buying in used cars of only premium quality. It's a digital advocate. It is using things like e-commerce and data analytics to move forward, and this will help it gain an advantage on competitors who are not analyzing their customer base in this way. It also has a B2B offering, which is helpful as this means that it can provide to businesses and lease cars out, which is an advantage as these businesses will pay off much of the cost of depreciation and will provide Cuppcar with premium quality used cars. Its weaknesses, there is quite low differentiation from competitors, although this is just a part of the industry really. It is dependent on manufacturers. This is also a potential risk as manufacturers could go for an agency model, for example, as we'll discuss later. Its current ratio is around 0.8, which means it cannot cover all of its current liabilities, which puts it at risk of having to get short-term loans out. It needs a more effective marketing campaign mainly. We've seen that it has increased its marketing spend by 25%, but has not seen as sharp a rise in revenue as a competitor like Milkro Motors has. It also has a lack of a clear vision. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. We've not seen any indication that it wants to be the largest car dealership in Welland or that it wants to expand overseas. There's not really a clear vision in mind, so it may benefit from having better direction. Now, in terms of opportunities, we've seen that Cuppcar could potentially vertically integrate. It provides third-party services like warranties and car loans, but it could provide these itself potentially. Cuppcar has a great degree of knowledge on the used cars it has, and so could provide warranties for these. And it also could start providing its own financing to customers, which could increase the profits it makes from this, as, for example, a company like Lithia Motors has done in real life. It could also benefit from new suppliers, for example, electric vehicle manufacturers, as even though these sales are struggling to take off in Welland at the moment, they will potentially go up in the future. And so by developing a relationship with these manufacturers now, it could benefit long term. There's also the opportunity for expansion through national consolidation. It could start snapping up smaller dealerships in order to increase its market share in various regions, or it could expand overseas. It would need a foreign exchange reserve to do this, but it could buy companies in nearby countries as it already has expertise in selling cars and could apply this to different nations. There are also potential cost savings from digitization. For example, in the workshop, different aspects of this could be automated, such as fixing software, and it could also benefit from laying off some of its sales staff. For example, if e-commerce becomes more popular, used car salespeople will not be as important to Cuppcar's operations. There's also threats. So price competition is one. There could be a race to the bottom where different dealerships start lowering prices, and this could lead to losses being made in the short term as companies try and chase those servicing, repairs, and parts profits. There's also the risk of the agency model coming in. So this would be where dealerships stop being the ones who decide the price of the car, receive a fixed price from the manufacturer, and just have to give it to the customer as a pickup location, essentially. This would hugely reduce the margins of dealerships, and we've seen it come into play in real life. For example, in Australia, where Mercedes have implemented it, and this was met with great anger from dealerships, showing the threat it presents to their business models. There's also staff skills. So if fewer people start training to become mechanics, for example, this reduces the effectiveness of Cuppcar's workshops, but it also could be an issue with the staff skills it currently has. So if electric vehicles become more popular, or if cars are becoming more modernized, its current workshop staff may not have the skills needed to deal with these issues. There's also supply chain risk. So if there's disruption in an earlier part of the supply chain, dealerships may not receive vehicles on time and therefore may not be able to provide to their customers the products they are demanding. And finally, there's a lack of control. Cuppcar doesn't really have control over what its manufacturers do, and therefore if a certain manufacturer becomes a lot less popular due to providing a worse model, for example, that is unpopular with consumers, this could affect individual dealerships as well as Cuppcar as a whole. So we'll now move on to our industry analysis. In the exam, you'll be expected to roleplay as a finance manager who's been working in the car dealership industry for years, and therefore will be expected to have a level of knowledge of how this industry works. Examiners love seeing real-life examples brought in to help supplement your arguments, and therefore we've provided you with a full industry pack with a comprehensive analysis of the car dealership industry, as well as 25 industry examples. In this video, I'll be taking you through 3 of those real-life examples you can bring into your exam. So our first industry example we'll look through is that autonomous vehicles are expected to disrupt the dealership industry. So industry experts expect autonomous vehicles to cause significant disruption to car dealerships. Some core activities will see reduced activity. For example, the number of accidents and damaged cars will decline, even in cars which aren't fully autonomous, but with those that use driver assistance systems. Autonomous vehicles will frequently also be deployed in fleets, such as to taxi firms to provide driverless taxis, which will reduce the demand for private car ownership. Bain & Company expects new car sales in Berlin, for example, to drop by 12% by 2030 due to driverless taxis being cheaper and more readily available. If you think about this, this makes sense as the main cost of a taxi is the actual driver. So if you're only paying for fuel and the maintenance of the vehicle, you can in fact charge a much lower fee. So this is relevant to the pre-scene because obviously Cuppcar as a dealership sells cars and also does core activities in its workshop which will be affected by autonomous cars. So therefore a sample exam paragraph would go along the lines of saying that a key risk posed by technology is the rise of autonomous vehicles. There will be fewer accidents due to elimination of human error, which will reduce demand for our workshop. New car sales will also fall due to the increased availability of driverless taxis, which will be cheaper than those driven by humans, as they will only need fuel and maintenance. These changes could diminish our profitability in the long run if we do not adapt our business model. You could also bring in a stat like the 12% one, and just relate it to the rise of technology and how it poses risks for a business like Cuppcar. The second industry example we'll look at is California's Consumer Privacy Rights Act taking effect. So in January 2023, California's CPRA took effect and became the most comprehensive consumer-oriented privacy law in the US. This means retailers now need to have a consumer's explicit consent before using their personal information, before they can use it to market other products. Regulations now also state that a company must conduct due diligence of service providers to ensure that they do not intend to violate the CPRA. This is relevant to the pre-scene because Cuppcar's management team uses techniques like data mining to identify useful patterns and relationships that can be used to improve revenues and profitability. So in the exam, you could say that we should ask for customer consent before using their data to help with marketing. Even though it's been a useful technique, consumers have a right to data privacy, and we should display a genuine commitment to ethics and putting customers first. It would be wise to preempt legal changes such as the Consumer Privacy Act of 2022, and this will help establish us as an ethical business and prevent disruption if new laws are passed. And the final industry example we'll look at in this video is AutoNation launching micro-leasing options to consumers. So in the autumn of 2023, AutoNation rolled out a new pricing platform called AutoNation Mobility. This offers customers a 6 or 12-month micro-lease, where the customer sets down payment, lease terms online, and then leases a car from AutoNation's inventory for the period. This provides consumers with short-term transport fixes and appeals to customers who want new models but get bored of them quickly. And it also offers a solution to inventory management, as AutoNation will be able to lease out a car and let the consumer pay a chunk of early depreciation, and the company receives the car back with low mileage and can add it to its premium used car inventory. So this is relevant because inventory management is important for Cuppcar, and so the sample exam paragraph might go along the lines of saying that a technique for helping to improve inventory management could be to offer a leasing scheme for individual cars to customers. Automation you could use as an example of a company that has done something similar, and this could help with inventory management as customers will therefore pay off most of a car's early depreciation, and Cuppcar retains the asset as part of a premium used car inventory. So thanks for watching this MCS industry analysis of Cuppcar. Hopefully it's given you a much better idea of how car dealerships work, and hopefully you'll have some great knowledge to use in your exam to maximize your marks. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next Astranti MCS case study video. That brings us to our penultimate video, which is the top 10 issues. Now, every sitting before an MCS exam, we will go through the pre-seen and previous exam papers and come up with a list of our top 10 key issues we think are likely to come up in the exam and how you could answer questions based on them. This isn't a guarantee that these issues will come up, but we found that they very likely will, and therefore it's worth learning these topics in detail. In this video, I'll be taking you through the financing topic, which is one that comes up regularly in the MCS and is also likely to for Cuppcar. So to start off with, let's look at financing. So why have we picked financing? It's a key F2 topic. Very often in exams, students are asked about equity financing, debt financing, and the weighted average cost of capital. And there's also the opportunity to use this as part of other questions. If you're talking about virtually anything that needs paying for, a big investment or an acquisition, for example, you could bring in financing. Especially as Cuppcar is a publicly listed company, this expands the amount of options they have for questioning you about financing, so it's always commonly examined in the MCS and particularly likely for Cuppcar. So what are some likely issues that could come up in your exam? So there could be a long-term funding requirement for some kind of project. This could be an acquisition. For example, we've seen in the real world that companies like Lithia have recently expanded into markets like the UK, and this seems to be a way of growth within the industry, so it's something that could come up within the exam, and it would need financing. For example, Lithia Motors has taken on $2.3 billion of debt in the last year, and other companies like AutoNation have taken on $700 million of debt, so it's clearly a way companies are trying to finance. In addition to there could be new projects, for example, redesigning the dealerships, or there could be some form of organic growth, such as building new stores or a new branch of the company. It could also just be a regular year-on-year financing of the purchase of new fleets, as the pre-seen tells us that these new fleets every year are bought from manufacturers with finance, and therefore you might have to interrogate what type of finance this would be. There's also the question of appropriate sources. So, for example, with rights issues and debentures, you may be able also to rule out certain types of sources as being inappropriate for a company like Cuppcar. Say, for example, you could not say that an initial public offering would be a good way for Cuppcar to raise finance, because no matter how well you analyze this point, it is irrelevant as Cuppcar has been listed as a public company for nearly 20 years now. We've then got key points to raise. So Cuppcar's debt to equity ratio was 37.7 in 2022. And this means that it has debt capacity to raise finance before it needs to sacrifice any control by raising equity finance. So what relevant theory could you bring up in the exam? So there's the advantages of debt versus equity. So in terms of debt, it's quick access to new funds, and it's quite low cost compared to equity. This means that it's a more attractive option for companies who don't want to sacrifice control and need to raise money quickly. However, equity may be preferable because dividends are optional. Cuppcar has just paid out 97% of its profits as dividends, so this means that it could probably get away with not paying them next year, for example, whereas interest payments on debt are compulsory and must be paid back annually. There's also no need to pay back the capital that you raise with equity. Once you've sold some equity, you don't need to think about paying back anything to shareholders directly. Finally, that brings us to mock debriefs. The purpose of these is to give you an insight into how we would approach answering a question in the MCS exam. This includes helping you with your time management, planning, and breaking down a question, thinking about how you would bring parts of the exam paper into your solutions. In this mock debrief, I'll be taking you through how to break down the requirements of an MCS exam question. So, for example, for question 1 here, we see that you are asked to provide a report on options that a business like Cuppcar has available in developing a new business model. So you can see here now that I've added some brief notes to this requirement. So obviously this talks about E2 topic of business models, and it relates to core activity A, which says that I can select and implement suitable business models that will create value for stakeholders, etc. Now, what you will need to do here is think about a structure for your answer. And this is part of why we say not to read the paragraph before, because by thinking of a structure now, you can not get distracted by different things you see in the question, which might make you think of different ways to structure it. However, instead, you can think of a particular model and then find ways in the paragraph to fit into the model. So, for example, in this scenario, we're using the incumbency model as a way to structure our answer here. Funnily enough, there are models about business models, and this model gives us 5 clear different approaches that a business such as Cuppcar could take to developing a new business model, which include buying a different business, partnering with another business, such as through a strategic alliance or a joint venture, building from scratch within your own company, investing in a different company, and incubating and accelerating the growth of a smaller, promising company. Now, with that one, we will move on to requirement 2, which says that furthermore, in the pursuit of improved efficiencies, we would also like a breakdown of what makes a high-performance team to reaffirm how the company currently develops its staff and staff operations. So here we see that you can also then break down this question in the same way that we did the first requirement. So it relates to the E2 topic around high-performing teams and relates to core activity B, which states, I can recognize the characteristics of high-performing teams. Now, for this one, we've used Google's model of what makes a high-performing team, but again, you don't have to use Google's model. You can use any model which relates to high-performing teams as long as it is valid for this question and gives you a clear structure for your answer. So for Google's model, there are 5 different characteristics, again, of a high-performing team. To just take one, because we will go through this more deeply at a later point, psychological safety, for example, is the fact that team members need to feel safe speaking to each other and expressing themselves honestly, so that everyone is able to contribute and share without the fear of being overly criticized. And finally, the third requirement, to further cut costs and maintain an efficient business model, Cuppcar wants you to explain through the use of a cost management model how they could make the company more efficient while maintaining the quality of their service. So, in a similar vein to the first two, we've identified this as being a P2 topic of cost management. It's part of core activity C, which is I can use cost management techniques or quality management techniques. And due to this, as it's asking for a cost management model to be used for efficiency and maintaining quality, we can see that it specifically asks for a model in this case, and therefore we can pick between different options. So we could use total quality management, as it talks about maintaining quality, and TQM is also about keeping costs low. But for this one, in our solution, we've used BPR, Business Process Reengineering. And therefore, you'll have to think about the 6 different parts of BPR. and how they would make Cuppcar more efficient. For example, to take one, you would need a skilled BPR team, as this would be a very large job and you need people who are qualified to do it, otherwise you won't get buy-in from your organization, and this likely involves paying large sums to external consultants who can look over the whole business and suggest solutions. That brings us to the end of our MCS highlights reel. Hopefully that's given you a taste for the different products we offer, which can help you pass your MCS exam. At Astranti, we've been helping students for decades pass their CIMA exams by minimizing their study time and giving them the knowledge they need to get really high marks in the MCS exam. For our last few sittings, for example, our pass rates were much higher than the average, and that's why we believe we provide value for money. If you want to see more of the products you've seen in this video, we have a full pre-scene analysis pack, which includes 6 pre-scene analysis videos taking you through the pre-scene from start to finish. We've got a top 10 issues taking you through issues we believe likely to come up in the exam. A strategic analysis, which will not just be a SWOT, but include far more models and potential strategies Cuppcar could use to tackle future issues. An industry analysis, which will explain the car dealership industry to you in full, as well as 30 pre-scene questions to test your knowledge of the pre-scene. However, just this analysis by itself won't necessarily be enough to help you pass your MCS exam. You'll need practice and expert guidance, and that's why we've got our MCS Premium course. With our Premium course, you get 5 mock exams to help you practice your skills and be familiar with the situations that could come up in the exam before you actually go in to sit it. You'll also be provided with mock marking and feedback from our expert tutors. We've got exam technique videos to help you sharpen up those skills, and 3 masterclasses with our expert tutor, Mary Jane, who will guide you through the MCS exam, including exam technique, Cuppcar, and will answer any questions you might have. We've got tutor and mentor support available constantly throughout your time with us here, and you will get access to our discussion hub where myself and students will collaborate and engage on different issues related to Cuppcar, and you'll be able to get help from this discussion hub as well. We've also got a double pass guarantee exclusive to Premium course students. Now, what does this mean? We don't just talk a good game, we really believe that our course will help you pass, and that's why if you happen to fail after doing our Premium course, you will get a double pass guarantee where you'll get to sit the exam again with us in the next sitting for free. And this is a testament to the fact that we really believe that our materials will help you pass. However, what if you look at all these and you think, these sound good, but I really need mock exams or I really need a different product? Well, you can look at our website where we have got information about which products can be purchased individually and pricing options for our different pre-scene packs. So with that said, myself and everyone at Astranti wishes you the best of luck for your MCS exam, and we hope to see you in more Astranti videos. Thanks for watching and goodbye.